Chapter 1. When it comes to change, tiny is mighty. Many of us believe something is wrong with us when our results fall short of explanation. We often blame ourselves for failure and push to do better. However, we are not always the problem. Our approach to change is. It is a design flaw, not a personal flaw. Popular thinking about habit formation and change feeds into our impulse to set unrealistic expectations. As opposed to these popular opinions, building habits and creating positive change can be easy with the right approach. In order to successfully form habits and command a change, you need to do 3 things. Stop judging yourself. Take your aspirations and break them down into tiny behaviors. Embrace mistakes as discoveries and use them to move forward. The most important of these steps is taking off self-criticism. You change best by feeling good, not bad. Self-criticism and self-doubt are their own kind of habit, and they often pull you back from making real progress by making you feel bad. However, if you follow the tiny habits process, you'll be well on your way to easily and joyfully bridging the gap between who you are and that person you want to be. Chapter 2. Creating tiny positive habits is the path to developing bigger ones. One problem humans face is that of time. There is never enough. We always feel so pressed for time that we have a scarcity mindset. This mindset makes us say no to change, as we feel like we don't have time to cultivate new habits. 30 minutes of exercise a day seems too much. Writing daily in a journal sounds amazing, but you don't have that kind of time. A solution to the issue of time is starting tiny. Focus on small actions that you can do in less than 30 seconds. This way, you can quickly wire in new habits and they'll grow naturally. When you start tiny, you can create big changes in little time. Starting tiny allows you to get real with yourself and your life. It allows you to start right now. Another positive to cultivating tiny habits is that it's an approach that involves less risk. This implies that you can start to change without making a big scene. This reduces the pressure on you. There are no real failures in forming tiny habits, and as such, emotional risk is eliminated. The saying, "go big or go home," isn't always helpful. Indeed, it is often better to start small. One tiny action might feel insignificant at first, but it allows you to gain the momentum you need to ramp up to bigger challenges. Cultivate the tiny habit approach called the Maui Habit. After you put your feet on the floor in the morning, say with conviction, "It's going to be a great day." The Maui Habit gives you a positive and optimistic view of life, and therefore gives your day the charge it needs. Chapter 3. Study the Fogg behavior model and identify what drives your behavior. 3 variables drive behavior: motivation, ability, prompt. When these 3 elements converge together, behavior happens. Remember this: motivation plus ability plus prompt equals behavior. Motivation is your desire to do the behavior. Ability is your capacity to do the behavior, while prompt is your cue to do the behavior. Let's take, for example, a man who donated via text to the Red Cross after the massive earthquake in Haiti. His motivation would be that he wanted to help the victims of a devastating disaster. His ability being that he was able to reply to a text message from the Red Cross, which was his prompt. Converge of the 3 elements, motivation, ability, and prompt, made the man's behavior. However, if one of the 3 elements hadn't been sufficient, there's a good chance that the behavior wouldn't have taken place. This behavior model is also called the Fogg behavior model, and even though it is hard to believe, it is a universal model. Behaviors are like bicycles. They can look different, but the core mechanisms are the same. It is important to note that motivation and ability have a compensatory relationship. Here are the basic outlines. The more motivated you are to do a behavior, the more likely you are to do the behavior. The harder a behavior is to do, the less likely you are to do it. Motivation and ability work together like teammates. No behavior happens without a prompt. Sometimes we want to behave, or we want someone else to. Behavior design gives us a specific set of steps to achieve this. Check to see if there's a prompt to do the behavior. See if the person has the ability to do the behavior. See if the person is motivated. Following the behavior model helps you identify what's driving your own behavior, or others. You'll find that sometimes it's an ability problem, not a motivation problem. Sometimes the problem is with motivation or promptness. The more motivated you are to do a behavior, the more likely you are to do the behavior. Chapter 4. Motivation is unreliable in behavior building. One mistake we often make is putting all our eggs in the motivation basket. Motivation is often unreliable when it comes to home improvement and self-improvement topics like diets, exercise routines, job hunting, and opening businesses. Motivation is one of the 3 elements that drive behavior. However, motivation is not enough due to the following reasons. Motivation is complex. There are 3 sources of motivation: what you already want, the benefit or punishment you'll receive from doing the action, and your context. These sources, often classified as person, action, and context, are fundamental to identifying human behavior, and motivation can come from one or more of these sources. This complexity of our motivations can result in an emotional tug-of-war. The motivation wave: when motivation surges, you can do hard behaviors. However, high levels of motivation are unsustainable. Motivation fluctuation. Motivations are not stable. They shift in predictable and unpredictable ways. These shifts make you unable to take full control of your motivation. Motivating toward an abstraction doesn't yield results. People often believe that motivating themselves toward an aspiration will lead to a lasting change so they can focus on aspirations and motivations. However, that combo doesn't work. Motivation is not the winning ticket for long-term change. If you focus only on motivation when building a habit, you're ignoring 2 key components that drive behavior. This is wrong because motivation alone doesn't get you there. Dreams and aspirations are good things, but investing time and energy to motivate ourselves toward abstraction is a wrong move. While motivation is key in behavior design, it could also be a trap. To outsmart it, one needs to clarify the aspirations, explore behavior options, match with specific behaviors. Chapter 5. Simplicity makes a habit easier to do. While motivation is unreliable, ability is not. By looking at where our ability lands on the behavior model, we get a good idea of what behaviors are more or less likely to become habits. For example, if your ability to do something is so low, you'll only do this behavior on days when you are riding the motivation wave. If a behavior is easy to do, you can be way up the action line even if your motivation is low. The key to doing a habit consistently is adjusting the most reliable thing on the B=MAP model, which is ability. Since ability is the most reliable key to behavior design, it is important to increase one's ability for a behavior. We can make new habits easier to do using these approaches. Increase your skills. Things are easier to do when you're better at them. When you gain skills, either by watching videos on the net, taking a class, or asking a friend for tips, you turn up the volume on ability. Get tools and resources. A behavior will never be a habit if it frustrates you. Therefore, it is important to get the right tools to make the behavior easier. Find what makes a behavior hard to do and use tools to make it easier. Make the behavior tiny. This approach is a foolproof way to make something easier to do, regardless of your motivation levels. Start by taking tiny steps and do not raise the bar prematurely. Even though you don't have to use all 3 approaches, combining them is a great way to make your behavior as simple as it can be. Your motivation levels will help decide which jumping-off point is best for you. When your motivation is high, acquiring skills and tools are the best course of action to take. However, when it's on the low side, we need to balance things up by making the behavior tiny. Chapter 6. Prompts are the invisible drivers of our lives. Humans experience hundreds of prompts every day, yet we barely notice them. Prompts come in natural and designed forms and tell us to do this behavior now, and we do it. Well-timed prompts are so powerful because people reliably respond to them when they're motivated and able. Prompts are crucial components to getting it right. To build a habit, you design a good prompt for the behavior you want. To design a good prompt, you have to first understand the 3 types of prompts. Personal prompt. This prompt type relies on something inside of you to do a behavior. Basic bodily urges like grumbling stomach and bladder pressure are the most natural personal prompts. These prompts are pretty reliable in getting us to take action. However, they won't be as effective if your survival is not dependent on your behavior. The person prompt isn't a good choice as our memories are often faulty. So we need more. Context prompt. This prompt type comes in the form of environmental cues like sticky notes, app notifications, or a friend reminding you to join a meeting. There are a few ways to design a context prompt, such as setting an alarm on your voice assistant, putting a ring on the wrong finger, sending yourself a text message, or even asking a child to remind you. A downside to context prompts, despite its effectiveness, is that they can be stressful. Action prompt. An action prompt is a behavior you already do that can remind you of the new habit you want to cultivate. For example, your existing habit of brushing your teeth can serve as your prompt to floss. this is a better option than other prompts. All it requires is for you to tap into the ecosystem of routines you have. You already have a lot of reliable routines. You just need to make each of them serve as an action prompt for a new habit. You have to code things correctly by putting them in the right order. 3 types of prompts: personal, context, and action. Designing a prompt isn't only to aid personal habit cultivation. A well-designed prompt is vital for business too. There is hardly any product or service that doesn't rely on getting customers to take action. No prompt means no action. To succeed in business, you need to figure out what will prompt your customers at the right moment. Prompts from business often come in the form of context prompts, which are sent through email, phone calls, and social media. However, these methods are losing their effectiveness over time. Just like in personal development, action prompts are the best for customers, as you now have insights into what works with real people. Using this edge, you can help your clients find where the new habits fit naturally in their lives. Chapter 7. Positive experiences reinforce habits. When you experience a positive reinforcement, a good neurochemical reaction takes place in your brain. Good feelings spur the production of a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in the brain, called dopamine, that controls the brain's reward system and helps us remember what behavior led to feeling good, so we will do it again. With the help of dopamine, the brain encodes the cause and effect relationship, and this creates expectations for the future. B.J. Fogg. There is a direct connection between how you feel when you do a behavior and the likelihood that you will repeat such behavior in the future. A range of positive experiences can reinforce a new behavior that leads to a habitual response. There are old myths that repetition creates habits. This is incorrect. Emotions create habits. This is because when it comes to behavior, decisions and habits are opposites. While decisions require deliberation, habits do not. For example, people don't decide to take their phones when leaving the house. They just take it without deliberating. It's a habit. There are many types of positive reinforcement to wire in a habit, but the real winner is creating a feeling of success. Celebration is indeed the best way to create a positive feeling that wires in new habits. It is the bridge from tiny habits to big changes. It is free, fast, and available to all people. Celebration is a habit fertilizer. Cultivate feelings of success, thereby prompting confidence to make the soil more inviting and nourishing for all the other habit seeds we want to plant. The moment you remember to do your new habit, while you're doing your new habit, immediately after doing your new habit. Chapter 8. Habits do not grow on their own. Rather, they are cultivated. Cultivating habits is similar to cultivating a garden. You could stand idly on your back porch and wish that your yard would become more beautiful. Even when weeks go by and weeds begin to grow, you only pull out a few strands here and there and go back to lazing around. Or you could choose to actively play a part in designing the garden you want. You identify what vegetables and flowers you'd love to have in your garden. You choose plants you can easily work with, and you consider which yard is best for each plant. While it takes a bit of planning and care to get the delicate little sprouts off the ground, you make sure they are deeply rooted by celebrating little successes. Soon, it's time to watch your rooted vegetation grow bigger. It is the same with building new habits. It may take extra attention and experimentation at the beginning, but once you establish new habits the right way, it doesn't take much beyond doing them consistently for them to flourish. There is no specific measure for how long it takes for habits to grow to their full expression. The formation time of a habit depends on 3 things: the person doing the habit itself, the action, the context. The interaction between personality, action, and context determines how easy or difficult it is to build a particular habit. Chapter 9. You can work on dropping old habits and creating new ones. A helpful way to think about habits is to put them into 3 categories. Number 1. Uphill habits. This category of habits requires ongoing attention to maintain but are easy to stop. Examples are getting out of bed when your alarm goes off, going to the gym, or meditating daily. Number 2. Downhill habits. Easy to maintain but difficult to stop. Examples are hitting snooze, swearing, and watching videos on YouTube. Number 3. Free-fall habits. These habits are like substance abuse that can be extremely difficult to stop unless you have a safety net of professional help. To help you get rid of your downhill habits, Tiny Habits introduces a system called the Behavior Change Master Plan. This master plan designed to disrupt unwanted habits has 3 phases. Number 1. Focus on creating new habits. Number 2. Focus on stopping the old habit. Number 3, focus on swapping the old habit for a new one. Create new, positive habits first. Then work on stopping the old habit. If it doesn't work, swap the new habit for a new one. There are times we want to stop a habit. Reducing motivation and adding a demotivator is key to consciously putting an end to some habits. Chapter 10. We can effectively create a collective change in the social sphere. Social dynamics are powerful drivers of behavior. The effects are all around us. How we act while watching a football game, how we talk about politics, how we treat one another online and in person. Social influence has always been a part of human existence. But with social media multiplying and magnifying those influences, our lives have become increasingly connected. It is therefore important to think deeply about how these social forces are shaping our individual and collective behavior, and ultimately impacting every human life. Tiny habits equips you with the power you need to defend yourself against undermining influences and design new habits that lead to a more harmonious, healthy, and meaningful life for everyone around you. With your newly acquired knowledge of how behavior works, you can identify what's underpinning those habits you want and the ones you don't want. You can design a change in your own behavior to distance yourself from a group's negative influences. You can also work together with others to design a change in your collective behavior, or design a change for others that will benefit them. By using tiny habits and behavior design, you can be a force for good in the lives of others. Start by building your change skills and begin closer to home. Ideally, you should get cooperation and support when you set out to change your family, work group, or community group. However, that's not likely to happen. To make effective changes around you, help people do what they already want to. Start people on the path to change from the place they want to begin. This way, they don't see you as the enemy, and chances are, they'll be energized by the positive changes and start coming up with habits of their own that are aligned with the change you want to create. When supporting other people in the change process, it is important to engage in conversations about change with the people around you. Help people do what they already want to do. Help people feel successful. Conclusion. The quality of our lives on planet Earth depends largely on the choices we make every day. How we spend our time, how we live our lives, and how we treat ourselves and others determine how well our lives go in the long run. As a global community, we are increasingly disconnected from ourselves and other people. We need to factor in a change to fix this anomaly. The first step toward this is to embrace feeling better. Habits are a means to an end. They teach us the skills of change, propel us toward our dreams, and add more shine to the world. We all should embrace feelings of success and watch ourselves experience profound transitions from fear to hope. This way, we can regain control of our lives, knowing we all are capable of making the small changes that change everything. Try this. Break up your aspirations into tiny positive habits. This way, you can easily build up behaviors that'll help you and others in the long run.